Good morning. My name is Peter Hurst, and I am the President and CEO of the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council. I am pleased to welcome you today to our 2023 annual meeting. Today, my colleagues intend to share with you some of the Council's highlights during 2022 and also some of our plans for 2023. But more importantly, the most exciting item on today's agenda is our guest speaker, the leader of the only federal agency that is focused on minority business development, the Minority Business Development Agency, which is part of the U.S. Commerce Department. Friends, it is such an honor to introduce our special guest today, Undersecretary Donald R. Cravens. Mr. Cravens serves as the first Undersecretary of Commerce for Minority Business Development, where he leads the Minority Business Development Agency in its service of the nation's 9.7 million minority business enterprises. After more than 52 years in existence, in 2021, President Biden signed the Minority Business Development Act of 2021, expanding and making permanent MBDA as the United States' newest federal agency. Undersecretary Cravens was unanimously confirmed by the United States Senate on August 4, 2022. Mr. Cravens holds a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Louisiana State University and a Juris Doctor from the Southern University Law Center, where he served on the Law Review and the Moot Court Board. In 2004, he was elected to the Louisiana House of Representatives, and in 2006, elected to the Louisiana State Senate. While in the Louisiana legislature, he represented hundreds of businesses. Many were minority-owned, and many were located in rural communities. Following Hurricanes Katrina and Rita, Mr. Cravens served as a voice and champion for business owners, assisting with navigating the challenges related to recovery and rebuilding. In 2009, he left the Louisiana legislature to serve as the staff director and chief counsel for the United States Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship, where he played a vital role in the successful passage of the Small Business Jobs Act of 2010. In January 2013, he became the chief of staff to United States Senator Mary L. Landrieu of Louisiana. At that time, he was the only African-American chief of staff in the United States Senate. Since leaving the United States Senate in 2015, Mr. Cravens has served in key executive positions for some of America's largest nonprofit and for-profit corporations, including the National Urban League, where he most recently served as its executive vice president and chief operating officer. As one of the nation's preeminent civil rights organizations, he led the Urban League's entrepreneurial initiatives and spearheaded its corporate diversity, equity, and inclusion program. In addition to serving as Undersecretary, Mr. Cravens is a United States Army Major in the District of Columbia Army National Guard Judge Advocate General Corps. His awards and military decorations include 2 Meritorious Service Medals, 3 Army Commendation Medals, the Air Force Commendation Medal, and the Army Achievement Medal. Most importantly for me, Mr. Cravens is a life member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, as am I, and one of my board members, Ramon Peralta. He's also a life member of the Rocks, Inc., and a member of the 100 Black Men of Prince George's County. Mr. Cravens and his wife, Yvette Phuket Cravens, Esquire, have 3 children and reside in Maryland. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome our speaker today, the Honorable Undersecretary Donald Cravens.
Well, thank you so much, Brother Hurst. It's good to see you and good to be with you all. I want to thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be with you. It's always a pleasure to see you and your leadership, and just happy to be with the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council today. I'm so thankful and proud of all the work that you are doing in the Northeast, across 6 states, from Connecticut to Maine, for our minority businesses. And as you know, what you are doing for those minority businesses are it's not only helping the minority community of those areas, it's helping the American community, the American economy in those areas. And so I'm so thankful for all the work that you're doing. And of course, I'm grateful because not only do we share a mission, but MBDA and the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council are actually joined at the hip and working together as we speak to support the minority business community. As many of you know, the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council operates the MBDA's Massachusetts Business Center. And through our center, they are providing technical assistance and business support services to New England businesses and minority business enterprises, minority business owners and founders of color. And not only that, but the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council also operated one of our COVID emergency grant programs during the pandemic to help New England businesses of color get through the tough times and to stay on their feet during the pandemic. And so we are very thankful, proud of the partnership and of the work. And you are one of the most vital parts of the MBDA family. And so thank you so much for all that you do. Now, those of you who are, I know most of you have heard of MBDA, and you probably know bits and pieces about the MBDA story, but I'd like to tell you just a little bit this morning about the Minority Business Development Agency and where we come from and what we're currently doing. As Brother Hurst said, we are the only federal agency solely dedicated to the growth and global competitiveness of minority-owned businesses. Through our national network of 88 business centers and grant programs, of course, one of which is operated by the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council, we provide technical assistance for businesses, startup businesses, micro businesses that need very specific technical assistance. And we also provide business support services to those businesses that may be past the technical assistance stage, but continue to need networks, access to capital, access to networks, access to contracts. And so we provide, I like to say, the soup to nuts part of the minority business ecosystem, and we have to be an agency that can do that. Our focus is on helping business owners, founders of color, again, access capital, access contracts, and access markets and networks. The agency was actually created in 1969 by an executive order under President Nixon. It was at the tail end of the civil rights movement. We knew, and back then, we had leaders like Dr. King who were talking about the importance of not just civil and social rights, but about economic opportunity and equality as well. Before he was murdered, he was talking about how economic justice was just as important as social and civil justice. So the MBDA was created to be the voice, a surgical resource to pinpoint, to give people of color equal access and opportunities to succeed in business. And for over 50 years, the MBDA has been the voice in government for minority businesses. But because our agency had been created by an executive order, MBDA remained a temporary agency throughout that 50-year journey. And as a result, there was never any certainty that year to year, or president to president, or Congress to Congress, that MBDA would still be standing. However, in November of 2021, President Biden signed into law the Minority Business Development Act, and it made MBDA a permanent federal agency for the first time in our history. The act, which was very strongly supported by both Republicans and Democrats, does three things. First, as I said, it made the MBDA a permanent federal agency and elevated the leadership of the agency from a director level to an undersecretary level. Now, why is that important? Because in this hierarchy of agencies in the federal government, as you all know, each agency is led by a secretary. Second in command is a deputy secretary. And on the third level, the president appoints undersecretaries. So MBDA went from being a temporary agency with a director as its lead to an undersecretary department, meaning I'm at the table with the people who are making the decisions that affect all programs that we have been successful in getting done here during the Biden administration and that Congress has enacted. And so I'm no longer at the kiddie table. I'm no longer at a folding chair. I am near the head of the table near the secretary, the deputy secretary, and my colleagues who sit as undersecretaries and assistant secretaries. The second thing the act did was it mandated that MBDA expand its capacity so that it could reach more minority businesses. The third thing that the act does is it elevates MBDA's authority and influence so we can create systemic change and really start breaking down some of the barriers for businesses of color that I believe Dr. King was talking about even when he was in Memphis. So what does that mean? It means that we finally have, as I said, a permanent seat at the table. We're not just hanging out. We're not just hoping and praying that we'll get funded from year to year, but we are absolutely driving the conversations on equity, on access to capital, on access to contracts, access to networks for minority entrepreneurs. But even though we are elevating, we have still been doing valuable work, impactful work for minority businesses for decades. Despite our limited influences and resources, just last year, as we were transitioning from temporary to permanent, we helped our clients secure over $1 billion in capital and over $1.7 billion in contracts. And so, again, even when we were temporary, we were getting the job done for many of our entrepreneurs. But we look forward to expanding our work. Now, I'm grateful that the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council, and proud of the fact that it's one of our 88 programs that every day opens its doors and its computers and its access to minority businesses so that we can help them secure capital and contracts. As you know, you've all been doing it since July 2021, and you're doing a phenomenal job, led by the Center's project director, Ms. Deliza Nova, and her team. In under 18 months since you've been in existence, the Massachusetts Business Center has served 84 clients and counting and growing, and has helped those clients secure $75 million in financing, capital, and bonding. And I know they're just getting started as far as the impact they're going to have and generate for clients in the future. But we're very proud of the work they're doing, and they're making an impact in a very short time. As I mentioned, the Minority Business Development Act gives MBDA the authority to help lead the government in creating change on a systemic level. One of the ways we're going to do that is by creating strategic alliances and partnerships with private sector organizations so that we can have a greater reach and a greater impact. I'm a big believer in public-private partnerships to expand impact and reach. I'm very grateful that the National Minority Supplier Development Council, NMSDC, was the first private sector organization that MBDA signed an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding with, under my tenure. And we did it at their 50th anniversary in my home state of Louisiana. The Memorandum of Understanding is an agreement between MBDA and NMSDC to leverage each other's resources and each other's strengths in order to better serve the minority business community. This gives the community a greater voice, and it will make both our organizations' outreach and initiatives more effective and intentional. I'm excited. I hope you're excited because I believe this strategic alliance is going to produce great results. And it's only fitting, as many of you know, but some of you may not know, NMSDC was a program that originated from MBDA. It was one of our original grant programs. And so it's only right, it's only just that we continue to work together along this journey of entrepreneurship. Now, there's one last thing I want to discuss before I give you back your meeting, your conference. And that is a new program that I'm absolutely excited about, and it's called the Capital Readiness Program. My number one priority here at MBDA during my short time that I'll be here as a political appointee is access to capital. It's the number one issue that our businesses of all sizes face in this country, and it's especially a hard barrier for businesses of color to get over. And so we have focused on capital readiness. And so I've got a few slides that I've prepared, and I'm going to ask Ms. Joanne Wang if she could pull those slides up now so that I can talk to you about this brand new program, the Capital Readiness Program, and give you an idea of what we are trying to do and what we plan to do for business owners of color and people from socially and economically disadvantaged areas. Ms. Wang, can you bring those slides up? Okay, great. Make sure I can see them. Sure, give me 1 second. Great. So, Ms. May, let's go to slide 2, which is entitled just "What is the Capital Readiness Program?" It is a grant program that will create a national network of business incubators and accelerators for minority and underserved entrepreneurs. Now, let me tell you how this program got started. The Department of Treasury has given the Minority Business Development Agency access to $100 million to create this grant program, to create this new national network of business incubators and accelerators. And when I say new, of course, we mean every business accelerator and incubator has to be brand new. We know that some of you are already doing that work. We just want to create a new network that is solely dedicated to minority entrepreneurs and underserved entrepreneurs. And so we are seeking applications from qualified organizations, and that includes nonprofits, for-profits, higher education institutions, so our minority serving institutions like our HBCUs and our Hispanic serving institutions and others, or a combination of all of those I just mentioned, to submit grant applications to be part of this new national network of business incubators and accelerators. Again, the purpose of this program is that we want to help entrepreneurs access capital, access networks, and to build capacity, because we know that with the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill that has been signed into law by President Biden, there are going to be brand new countless opportunities for businesses of all shapes and sizes in America. And we want to make sure and work as hard as we can to get people ready to participate in that infrastructure. Next slide, Ms. Wang, please. Slide number 3. Why is the program important? You know this, but it bears repeating because we have to make sure people are very clear about what's going on in this country. Underserved entrepreneurs, Black entrepreneurs, Latino entrepreneurs, Asian American entrepreneurs, our Indigenous and Native American entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs of color, and entrepreneurs who work in socially and economically disadvantaged areas, they just do not have equitable access to capital. And as a result, they face systemic barriers to launch and to grow their businesses. And we know because the numbers bear it out, and they have for quite some time. Average capital when starting a business, we know African-American entrepreneurs start with about a third of our white brothers and sisters. We know that when you look at venture capital, which is important and for people being funded to start their businesses, women entrepreneurs receive very little venture capital. And when you disaggregate those numbers and break them up, and you look at Black and Hispanic female entrepreneurs, they receive less than 0.5% of venture capital. And so, and we know that many of the community banks, which in the past did lend money to people they knew in their communities, those banks many of those banks have closed, and the numbers have fallen, and that has harmed our rural entrepreneurs and our entrepreneurs of color. And so I know, you know, that the government should do all it can to make sure that underserved and entrepreneurs and founders of color have as many tools as necessary as possible to help them access capital and to launch their businesses. Next slide, Ms. Wang. So let me talk to you a little bit about the program design. I talked about incubators and accelerators, and I mean those terms specifically for some people who run those types, but also generally. I mean, some of you may run business centers that perform like incubators and accelerators, and you should absolutely consider applying as well. But when we're saying incubators and accelerators, this is generally what we mean. We're looking for applicants who can propose activities that resemble service models of incubators and accelerators, or a combination of both. And so, as I've said, incubators, we're thinking about people who help people get started, early stage entrepreneurs, launch their businesses, their products and services, really that technical assistance that gets people up and running. And we're also, when I'm saying accelerators are services that resemble accelerators, I'm thinking more about the emerging stage, those businesses that have moved beyond the earliest stages, and they need the business support services so they can scale their businesses. We're looking for people who want to do this work, who apply for the grants, and they can either do one or the other or both. And so we have really 3 levels of grants to account for what you may be interested in doing. Next slide, Ms. Wang. How will the program serve entrepreneurs? We talked about this. We really want grantees, people who will be awarded these grants, to work on helping people get access to capital, networks, and capacity. And you all know how important all of that access is to being successful, especially now in the times we're living in when we're going to spend 1.2 trillion in our own country to redesign our infrastructure. Next slide, Ms. Wang. So just some key dates to remember. If you are interested in applying for this grant program, you have a nonprofit, a for-profit, or you work at an institution that may want to do this work, the deadline to apply is February 28th. So you still have time to apply. You don't have to worry about emailing your intent deadline. That deadline has passed. But if you have any questions, you can go to our website at ssbci@mbda.gov. That's ssbci@mbda.gov. And I promise you, any question you have, just about any question you could have, is answered on that website, because we've done several of these discussions. We've worked very hard to make sure that any potential questions you'd have would be answered. We worked very hard in our notice of funding opportunity, the NOFO, that was posted to even announce this, was written in very plain English, so that there would be very little ambiguity and questions about what we're trying to get done. So this, we think is going to be a great program. Will it fix every problem we have? Absolutely not. Can it be a great first step or continuation of the work you all have been doing? I believe it can be. And so what I will say to you in wrapping up, Brother Hurst, is this. Even if you don't apply for the program, where I'm really going to need you all is once we stand up these centers and we support these centers, it's to drive entrepreneurs to the centers for the actual help. So this is phase one. This is making sure we stand up the network and support the network. Phase two, which is getting people to the network, getting entrepreneurs to the network, whether they be new centers or our existing business center, like the one you all have in Massachusetts. We want people to go and take advantage of these new resources and the resources at our Massachusetts Business Center. We want you to take advantage. And then lastly, phase three will be working with our finance community to make sure that we are sending these trained entrepreneurs to banks, to loan programs, to grant programs, to private equity programs, so they can get funding, so they can participate in this wonderful infrastructure and this economic boom that I think we're going to see as a result of the 1.2 trillion that we're spending on infrastructure and on broadband and on microchip creation and all of the great things that are going to come out as a result of Congress and President Biden and Vice President Harris's leadership. So that is what I wanted to talk to you about today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is, you all have been fighting, for some of you, for decades, to make sure that we had an ecosystem that really supported minority business enterprises. MBDA is a reality because of all of you. I get the blessing of serving as the first undersecretary, but there would be no undersecretary, there would be no MBDA, there would be no capital readiness program if you all had not, for decades, for years, continued to tell your legislators, your members of Congress, the presidents, and people who have been doing this work, that we need an agency still in 2023 that is solely dedicated to the growth and global competitiveness of minority firms. Because we know if our minority firms get an equitable chance, they'll pull themselves up by the bootstraps and will run and succeed and thrive. And a thriving minority business community is a thriving American community. So I want you to know, because of your efforts, help is no longer just on the way, or we're just waiting for somebody to come. Because of your efforts, help is here, and it's here to stay, and it's at this permanent minority business development agency. And so I am so thankful. I'm honored to serve with you, alongside you, and I look forward to working with you. This program is one of many programs that we're going to be launching or continuing at MBDA. We're going to continue to service our existing business centers and strengthen them as well. So we got a lot of good news to come. So even if you don't apply for this grant or you don't win the grant, there's plenty of good to come coming out of MBDA. Just give us some grace, give us some time, but I think we're going to make you even prouder and be a great partner for you. So, Brother Hurst, thank you for your leadership, sir. You all have a wonderful continued annual meeting. And if we can ever be of any help here at the Minority Business Development Agency, we're only one phone call, text message, or email away.
Brother Cravens, on behalf of the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council, I want to thank you for joining us today and for your important insights on the MBDA's response to the need for greater access to capital and opportunities to generate revenue, which creates jobs. I also want to thank Mr. Cravens and the MBDA for supporting our programs, which provide MBEs throughout New England with business development services and capacity building services. The MBDA Business Center in Massachusetts, which serves all of New England, the COVID-19 project, and the federal procurement supplemental funding. So thank you, Brother Cravens, and thank you to the MBDA. Now, all of you who are participating virtually, it's now time for the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council to take a quick look backwards at 2022 and a much longer look forward. During 2022, the Council remained focused on using minority business development and economic inclusion to reduce the racial wealth gap that plagues our country. Our tools to support and promote minority business development include business development services and programs and capacity building services. Our laser-like focus on minority business development will continue in 2023. I'd like to start our annual meeting by giving thanks to those who support the Council and make our work possible. Our board of directors led by Jim Linehan, our talented and committed staff, our annual sponsors, our corporate members, and most importantly, our MBEs. I'd first like to recognize the hard work and dedication of our board officers. Jim Linehan, who is the chairman of the board, Ruth Johnson, who's our vice chair, Sion Cogdo, who's our treasurer, and Ramon Peralta, who's the chair of the MBEIC. And I'd also like to thank each and every one of the members of our board of directors. Andreas Arnold, Arvin Chartery, April Cimarelli, Sion Cogdell, Jerry Epps, Mark Ham, Ruth Johnson, Saken Kokar, Manette Napik, Jim Linehan, Ramon Peralta, Ingali Puentes, Anthony Samuels, Joanne Schlick, Francisco Vasquez, Dr. Ramesh Orwani, and Michael White. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you're a basketball fan, you may recall that as talented as Michael Jordan was in his prime, the Bulls did not win NBA championships as long as the Bulls played like Michael Jordan and the Jordanaires. The same is true for the Council. I am blessed in making the Council successful and helping our MBs grow and prosper because of my colleagues. I have the best colleagues. Jose Colon, who's our Director of Finance and Administration, Joanne Wong, who's the Director of Corporate Services, Ramona Davis, who's the Director of MBE Certification, Gary Stifler, who's the Director of MBE Growth and Development, Eliza Ramirez, who's the Manager for Stakeholder Relations, Delisa Nova, who's the Project Director for the Massachusetts MBDA Business Center, Harold Blackwell, who's the Project Lead for the MBDA COVID-19 project, Christine Reed, who's the Project Manager for all of our MBDA programs, Sierra O'Brien, who's an Administrative Assistant, and Marion Sela, who's also an Administrative Assistant. Thank you. As dedicated as all of us are, the Council could not do our important work without financial support. So let me highlight and thank those who provide financial support to the Council, our annual sponsors and our grantors. Annual sponsorships represent almost 20% of the 2023 budget, and we allocate 60 cents of every sponsorship dollar to MBE development. The highest level is official, and our official sponsors for 2023 are Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts and the Panther Group, which is an MBE. The next highest level is Platinum, and Big Rio, and MBE is a Platinum sponsor for 2023. The next annual sponsorship level is Gold, and our Gold sponsors for this year are Zones and MBE, Boston Scientific, CBS Health, Mass Mutual Financial Group, Otis, Raytheon Technologies, and the TGX companies. I'd also like to thank all of our silver sponsors. And finally, I'd like to thank our bronze sponsors. In addition to our annual sponsors, in 2023, our corporate and public sector partners have provided the Council with special grants focused entirely on supporting the Council's MBE development programs throughout New England. Corporations providing special MBE development grants for 2023 include Silicon Valley Bank, Mass Mutual, and BAE Systems. Public sector grant support for our MBE development programs comes from the Minority Business Development Agency, the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, and the Massachusetts Growth Capital Corporation. As many of you know, there are 4 pillars that guide the work and mission of the Council: certify, connect, develop, and advocate. I'd like to take a few minutes to share at a very high level our successes with these pillars in 2022 and our plans for continued improvement in 2023. Regarding certification, between year-end 2021 and year-end 2022, our number of certified MBEs remained about the same, but there were notable gains in terms of aggregate revenue, which is a precursor for more profitability and more jobs. Aggregate revenue for all of our certified MBEs in New England increased from $2.3 billion to $2.9 billion. Aggregate revenue for Massachusetts MBEs increased from $1.59 billion to $1.97 billion. Aggregate revenue for MBEs in Connecticut increased from $352 million to $522 million. And this number is going to blow you away. Aggregate revenues for MBEs in Vermont increased from $2.6 million at year-end 2021 to $74.4 million in 2022. Regarding connections, there are 3 types of connections we promote: corporate and government to MBE to facilitate commerce, corporate to corporate, and MBE to MBE. Regarding our corporate and government to MBE connections, during 2022, we promoted several initiatives: virtual and in-person matchmakers, how to do business with seminars, and targeted network events at both Fenway, sponsored by the Boston Red Sox, and the Mass Biotech Council, which is a corporate member. And networking events with our partners included the Small Business Administration, and we look forward to doing more with them. And under the leadership of my colleagues, we made a number of targeted introductions and sustained follow-up between our corporate members and our MBEs, which led to contracts and growth. All of these programs and more are going to continue in 2023. In terms of corporate to corporate connections, during 2022, Joanne Wong, the Director of Corporate Services, continued to connect our corporate members with each other through a variety of platforms: quarterly corporate roundtables, industry groups, and an informal mentor-mentee program for supplier diversity professionals. Joanne is going to lead those programs into 2023. In terms of MBE to MBE commerce, during 2022, we continued to advocate for NMSDC to fulfill its long-delayed promise to provide MBEs with full access to the NMSDC database. Access to that database will allow minority businesses throughout the country to find each other and buy goods and services from each other. So we're going to keep focused on that. And in case that doesn't happen, we're now focused on, finding alternatives so that we can provide that same database and connectivity for MBEs throughout the country. During 2023, we're currently planning one or more multi-council MBE to MBE matchmakers, which will occur on a virtual platform. So stay tuned for that. And in terms of MBE development, I'd like to share that, we know that minority businesses, like any other business, need 3 things to grow and prosper. They need contracts, they need access to financial capital, debt, equity, grants, And they need access to intellectual capital, one-on-one consulting and subject matter training focused on 4 key areas: financial management, marketing, strategic planning, and process improvement. Our MBE development programs provide current and future MBEs with business development services and capacity building services at absolutely no cost. And I use the term future MBEs because a company does not have to be a certified MBE with our council in order to get these services free of charge. You just need to be an MBE anywhere in New England and we can help you. Our business development services include targeted introductions to and sustained follow-up with buyers of goods and services in the private sector, our corporate members and our larger MBEs, and in the public sector, federal, state, and local government and quasi-governmental entities. Our capacity building services include one-on-one consulting and subject matter training focused on making sure that when opportunities arise, our MBEs and our future MBEs are contract ready. That's very important. Our capacity building services focus on a number of important areas, including financial management, which in our view includes access to debt and equity capital and to grants, marketing, strategic planning, organic and inorganic growth. And inorganic growth is joint ventures, mergers, acquisitions, and succession planning. And finally, process improvement. During 2023, we are currently planning for a multi-day, multi-site financial summit with the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, several other regional councils, and several Federal Reserve banks throughout the country. We're going to use this financial summit to focus on, providing tools to get MBEs more access to capital and connections to make that a reality. We also intend to have one or more virtual matchmakers to connect our minority businesses with providers of debt and equity capital. So stay tuned for this virtual capital matchmaker. In a few minutes, you're going to hear from some of my colleagues who are on the front lines of directly providing MBE development services. And when necessary, they also have the ability to coordinate the use of subject matter experts who provide their expertise at no cost to the MBEs. You're going to hear from Gary Stifler, Delisa Nova, and Harold Blackwell. Finally, let me spend a few minutes talking about advocacy. For the council, advocacy is not just trying to influence leaders in the public sector. We have a much broader focus. We're also trying to influence leaders in the private sector, the members of those who are in the workforce in the private sector and in the public sector, and most importantly, customers who buy goods and services from the private sector. Our message in 2023 is a bit more nuanced than our message was about 50 years ago. 50 years ago, our message was support supplier diversity because it's the right thing to do. And while it is indeed the right thing to do, our message in 2023 goes a step further. Our message in 2023 is support minority business development because minority businesses build and sustain strong, healthy communities by 1, reducing the racial wealth gap, 2, generating economic output, 3, creating and maintaining jobs, especially with people of color, 4, generating tax revenue, and creating and sustaining a cadre of MBE owners who, in addition to making money and providing employment opportunities, they also serve as servant leaders throughout New England. If you doubt the power of MBEs to build, improve, and sustain communities throughout this country, remember these 3 data points. The universe of minority-owned businesses in the United States with paid employees, again, with paid employees, includes over 1 million firms. These firms have 1.5 trillion in aggregate revenue, and these firms have 9.4 million employees. Now, if you think about the promise of MBE development, minority-owned businesses in this country with paid employees can really fulfill that promise. So whether you're a CEO, a CFO, a governor, a mayor, a legislator, an employee, or a consumer, please understand two things. First, not all MBEs are small and struggling. And secondly, supporting the growth and success of minority-owned businesses is not doing them a favor. Rather, it is in your self-interest as a citizen, as a consumer, as a government official, as a corporate leader to make sure that minority businesses succeed, grow, and thrive. Let me close with a call to action and a call for accountability. As you know, the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council is part of a network that includes 23 regional councils, the National Minority Supplier Development Council, over 2,500 corporate members, and over 15,000 certified MBEs. The network has a commitment to economic inclusion and reducing the racial wealth gap. That commitment, however, will fall short of its promise if the network is divided and unfocused. Every stakeholder in this network needs to have a laser-like focus on helping minority-owned businesses grow and prosper above any other objective. Growing the revenues of the GNEMSDC and of the regional councils must take a backseat to focused and urgent programs designed to help our MBEs decrease the racial wealth gap with a combination of all of the following: more economic output, more job creation and maintenance, especially when employees are people of color, and more tax revenue. Let me be clear and unambiguous. Now is not the time for self-serving rhetoric and misguided agendas from anyone in this network. Our country, our region, and all of the states in which we live and do business, they all need the positive impact of minority business development now more than ever. And now more than ever, minority-owned businesses need the GNEMSDC, the 23 regional councils, and our corporate stakeholders to have a laser-like focus in ensuring that MBEs, have more of the lifeblood of success and prosperity. Contracts, access to debt and equity capital, and access to intellectual capital. Those things will ensure that our minority businesses are contract ready when opportunities arise. So friends, I implore you to hold all of us in this network accountable for results that matter. More contracts, more capital. The combination of those two things will lead to more revenue and more jobs. Don't let us get away with rhetoric and slogans that don't make a difference. Hold us accountable for those things that do. So at this point, I would like to now turn over the program to my colleagues who are actually doing the work that makes our council strong and effective.
Good morning. My name is Ramona Davis. I am the Director of MBE Certification for the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council. Today, I'm here to report the total MBEs that were certified in the year 2022. But to start, I'd like to provide a summary of the previous year's totals in that we certified 262 with a grand combined total of annual sales of just under $2.3 billion. In 2022, we certified 50 new MBEs, and we recertified 211 MBEs for a grand total of 261. As you can see from this slide, we have a total of 111 MBEs that were certified that make up 43% of our total MBEs that were certified. For category 2, we have 90, which make up 34%. We have 46 for category 3 that make up 18%. And we have 14 in category 4, which make up 5% of our total. The total annual sales for our MBEs for 2022 came in just at under $3 billion. We also classified our MBEs by ethnicity to show exactly how many MBEs that were certified are in certain categories, minority categories. We have our Asian Indian population at 67, which makes up 26% of our portfolio. We have our Asian Pacific, which is at 45 in total, and that makes up 17% of our total. We have our Black Americans, which is the top number of MBEs that we have at 85, and they make up 33% of our population. The Hispanic population is at 62. They make up 24% of our population. And our Native Americans, we have 2 MBEs, and that makes up 1% of our population. We also did a breakdown of certified MBEs by state. And as you can see here, we have Massachusetts being the top MBE state to be certified. And that's at 149, which make up 57% of the MBE total. 89 MBEs are in Connecticut. We have 10 in New Hampshire, 8 in Rhode Island, and 3 in Vermont. And as you can see, the percentages of the total number of MBEs is to the right. Lastly, we broke down and wanted to give you some information on the MBEs that are certified with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Supplier Diversity Office. And as you can see, it's broken down by the business structure, our number of MBEs, and what states they operate in. So we have 2 corporations that are certified in Massachusetts, and the rest are limited liability or LLC companies, 2 in Connecticut, 1 in Florida, and 7 in Massachusetts. That concludes my report. And now I'd like to turn it over to our next speaker.
Good morning. I'm Joanne Wong, Director of Corporate Services, and I'll be talking to you today about our corporate membership growth and corporate programming for 2022. So just a quick refresher, our corporate members fall into 2 buckets. There are local corporate members and national corporate members. The corporate members all have their headquarters within New England, and the only difference is who they pay their dues to. So local corporate members join GNEMSDC directly, and they pay their dues directly to us. National corporate members have a national footprint and are looking for goods and services from across all 23 regional councils, so they pay their dues directly to NMSDC. Now, prior to COVID, our growth with corporate membership was pretty stagnant. There wasn't much increase year after year, but since COVID began, we saw an 8% increase year after year. And we closed 2022 with a total of 136 local and national corporate members, a 9.2% increase with both local and national. So 79 members in the local bucket and 57 national corporate members. We really believe that recruitment and retention of our corporate members is critical to the success of GNEMSDC, and so we are hoping to continue along this path for 2023. We've already had a few informational meetings with potential members, and we've already brought on 2 new corporate members as of January 1. For 2022 corporate member programming, all of our programming was held virtually. We held a total of 9 How to Do Business with webinars, 2 virtual matchmakers in May and September. With our May matchmaker, we had a total of 34 meetings held between registered buyers and suppliers. And for our September meeting, we had 49 meetings held between our registered buyers and suppliers. We held 4 corporate roundtables. These peer-to-peer networking events were led by Dominic Ferrari of Alchemies. And for 2022, our industry group meetings were all held at the same time throughout the year. So all of our corporate members were brought together in one big group. There was a subject matter discussion at first, and then everyone broke off into their respective groups. Biotech, Pharma, Medical Devices, and Healthcare was led by Joyce Eggers of Takeda and Minette Napick of CVS Health. Financial Services was led by Tom Gunn of Putnam Investments. Higher Education was led by Veronica Cook of UConn. And the Retail and Commerce Group was held initially by Tatiana Paredes, formerly of Stanley Black & Decker, and is now led by Martha Crawford of Sikorsky. We also had 2 mentoring opportunities for our corporate members. We had a pilot MBE and corporate mentoring program. We brought together 2 corporate members with MBEs, and they worked pretty closely throughout the year. And we also matched together 3 sets of corporate member to corporate member informal mentoring, where a more seasoned supplier diversity professional was matched with a newer supplier diversity professional to provide support and guidance throughout the year. For 2023, corporate member programming will look pretty similar to that of 2022. So please make sure that you are taking a look at our biweekly newsletter and the events section of our website to stay on top of any new additions so you can participate and really leverage your membership. And now I'd like to turn it over to our next speaker.
Good morning. I'm Gary Stifler, Director of MBE Growth and Development for the Council. During my first 6 months, it's been a pleasure to reconnect with many MBEs that I've had a chance to meet and work with during my 15 years as a certified MBE with the Council. It also has been rewarding to have met many of the new MBEs the past few months. I look forward to meeting many more of you in 2023 and to have some meaningful conversations about your business. During my first 6 months, I worked to listen and support many MBEs in analyzing their current needs and steps in the business cycle, whether that be for capital growth, training for new markets, or connections to pursue new contract opportunities. We are here to work and provide guidance and provide outside consultative support to any of our members. Turning to 2023, we are planning to roll out Kaufman Fast Track training program that was last utilized in 2020 with a slight twist. We are working to have the training series videotaped in order for MBEs to utilize and participate on their own time. Having been a former MBE, I am first to push for all seminars, trainings, and functions to be cognizant of your time and have a results-oriented purpose for each. Your time is one of the greatest assets you possess in trying to grow your business. Next, I'd like to discuss the Mass CEC grant we received last fall and that I'm spearheading for the Council. This is a 3-year grant focused on MBE opportunities in the clean energy sector. This includes offshore wind, solar, EV charging, HVAC, and many other areas. The grant's goals are in the following. Let me share a screen with you. So the Mass Clean Energy Grant is set up to increase MBE clean energy business activity, increase the expertise within the MWBE sector, grow employment and revenue of existing MWBEs within the clean energy, create new MBA firms, and engage in existing support organizations to collaborate all resources. A lot of area there that we're going to be focused on. But the opportunities I feel in this sector, it is one of the largest growth opportunities in the coming years for MBEs. And I'm spending a lot of time meeting and learning about the industry so we can provide you with all the upcoming resources you may need to either grow and start up this segment. Please reach out to me to discuss your current business opportunities or challenges, and together we'll find and help find you some meaningful options and solutions. Thanks. I look forward to seeing you in an upcoming event. And now on to our next speaker.
Good morning. My name is Delisa Nova, Project Director at NBDA. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. As you are aware, we are currently in year 2 of the NBDA programming. And I would be remiss if I didn't touch base with you as to how we ended year 1. Before getting into some of those numbers, I want to remind you of some of the metrics we are evaluated on. So the NBDA evaluates us on 7 metrics. 1, number of clients served, number of engagements, gross revenue generated, value of capacity investments, number of jobs created, financing, capital, and bonding, and % of clients that increase profits. At the end of year 1, we were very successful. Some of those metrics are 104 MBEs served, 185 engagements, $22 million in gross revenue generated, and we assisted in closing of $50 million in financing. I want to show you a little bit about year 2, where we are expected to exceed those numbers even more successfully than we did in year 1. At the end of 2022, December, which is year 2, 6 months in and 6 months to go, we have 309 capacity engagements and we're counting. That is already almost double for all of year 1. 61 new MBEs, 200 million in financing, which is 400% more than year 1. Increased profits in about 30% of our MBEs, and we're expected to assist in closing over 25 million in capacity investments. Now, year 2 has truly been a year of building relationships and becoming a true partner for the MBEs that we serve. The focus for us is to continue building on the momentum we have by continuing to establish client touchpoints and engagement. We do this by weekly check-ins, bi-weekly or monthly engagement calls to review pipeline and strategize on business plans and growth. Another critical focal point for us in year 2 and on is to grow and develop community partnerships. Some of those community partners are Supplier Diversity Office, MassDOT, consultants, banks, CDFIs, fund managers, social impact investing groups, chambers, and other TA and MBE development groups. We are working on forging fruitful relationships between MBEs and making strides and connecting our MBEs to other businesses for increased working opportunities. It is also of utmost importance to strengthen our relationships with the council corporate members who keep proving to be an invaluable asset to the work we are doing at the NBDA. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it over to our next speaker.
Good morning. My name is Harold Blackwell, project lead and heading up the COVID-19 Small Business Response Grant. As of July 2022, we've brought in for the project approximately 80 clients, and this spans across the 6-state Greater New England region. To date, we are actually looking to hit a lot of the metrics that we first proposed to the NBDA and look to close in grand fashion when we end and the project culminates June 30th, 2023. To date specifically, we actually have served and met with 80 clients across the 6-state Greater New England region. And we're currently addressing and helping companies from needs such as helping a franchise obtain funding and financing for their build out in the Western New England area, specifically Massachusetts. We're actually helping a business address their startup needs based in Connecticut. They're an industrial supplier and certified member of our Greater New England Council. And then further to that, we're actually continuing to help some of the smallest, most potentially impacted clients of the center, and also businesses and MBEs that are based in the 6-state New England region. To date, right now, we're hoping to hit a metric that would far exceed the need that we have to achieve with regard to the grant. and then hopefully be able to be on hand to continue to help these businesses and these companies as they grow and develop. With that said, one of the things especially we're looking to address is the number of certified MBEs across the 6-state greater New England region. And as we're addressing these needs and helping these businesses in a tangible fashion, we're going to look forward to helping them from 2023 and beyond. That ends and closes all my remarks for this mid-year update. And I am now turning it over to our next speaker. Thank you. Have a great day.
So thank you for attending our annual meeting this year. We really appreciate your attendance. I also want to end by, again, thanking my board of directors, my staff. I want to thank all of our annual sponsors and all of our grantors, both public sector and private sector. I want to thank our MBEs for what you do each and every day to make our community stronger. And finally, I want to thank those buyers in the corporate and private sector who actually make the decisions to buy goods and services from our MBEs. We need you to buy more and do more. God bless.